Hey y'all, my name is Roger Walls. I'm the campus pastor at our Venture Church Northwest campus, and I just want to tell you, welcome back to Venture Midweek, where we take a look back at this past Sunday's messages at both our Keller and our Northwest campuses. We're in the middle of this teaching series called Calibrate, and this past Sunday we talked about generosity. And if you were at our Northwest campus or happen to listen to the message online, you'll know that one of the things that I admit to struggling with is generosity. It's something that my wife is a pro at, like master's class level generous person, and it's something that for whatever reason I've yet to grab a hold of fully what that means for my life and how I can participate in that on a regular basis. Which is wild because along the way God has shown himself to be nothing but faithful and nothing but generous in our life from jump. And so I wanted to share a quick story with you today about one of the ways in the past little bit that God has just been the definition of generous. About 20 years ago, my wife and I had just moved to the Metroplex, and we had found ourselves in a spot where we had pretty much nothing to our names. I was between jobs. And it was one of those seasons where my wife was working full-time. I had wrapped up one part-time job and I was about to begin another part-time job, and there was a lapse in paychecks from one season to the next. And we knew at that point that we had very minimal funds to literally exist on for the rest of our month. But we also knew that we had made a commitment very early in our very early in our marriage, that we were going to be faithful and consistent with giving with the local church. And so we sat down with a spreadsheet, sat down with what we knew we had in our bank account, had our giving at the top of the list, quickly followed by our mortgage payment and our utilities and telephone and all the other things that we knew we had to pay, all the other expenses for the month. And I remember this number because it was significant in the moment. By the time we had done all the math and paid all those bills and given where we knew we needed to give, we would have $7 left in our accounts. And that's not just checking and not including savings. Savings was a goose egg, and checking was $7. But we knew that we had made commitments. We knew we needed to be faithful for what we had been called to, and so we did it. We gave with a local church. We paid all of our bills, and then we just trusted God with the rest, literally not knowing how we were going to feed ourselves for the next couple of weeks before my paycheck started rolling in again. We let a few of our very close friends in on this information, but we didn't broadcast it to anybody because we didn't want to feel like a charity case. Honestly, is what it was. So we went into the next couple of weeks not knowing how our ends were going to be met. And two amazing, miraculous instances happened over the next 2 weeks. One time, we were driving north on Denton Highway towards the Keller area, and I was driving my wife's little Saturn SL1. She had a green one when we first got married. And my buddy, who was sitting in the passenger seat, said, "Hey man, pull into that gas station. I want to fill your tank up with gas." This guy had no idea what was going on. We were encroaching on the E in the gas gauge. And normally I'm that guy who would be like, "No, man, listen, it's fine. I appreciate you, bud, but we're going to be okay." But I didn't have the margin to be that guy. So I pulled over, and in honestly, some self-focused, prideful humiliation, I let my buddy fill up the gas tank. And that following Wednesday, we came home after church that evening, and there were 4 grocery bags on our doorstep at the house that had this note on it. And this note only had 4 words written on the front of it, and all it says is, "To the Walls family." This piece of paper is about 20 years old. My wife keeps it in her Bible in the book of Malachi. And as we sat down to eat dinner that night, and as we sat down to eat that food over the next couple weeks, it was the first instance in our life where, as we held hands and prayed over the meal, we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were literally thanking God for that food that we were eating that night, because it was a miracle. We didn't know where it was going to come from. We didn't know how we were going to feed ourselves. We didn't know how we were going to take care of our family. But here's the thing. God is generous beyond our even understanding of generous. And what he calls us to is to be faithful, to be obedient, and to be generous when we don't even have much. This past Sunday, we looked at the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 8, where Paul really brings to example this Macedonian church who literally had nothing. They were destitute, and yet they gave extravagantly from what they had. It's a beautiful picture of God using God's people to meet the need of God's people. And as one of God's people talking to some other of God's people, just know that we're in this thing together. And as we step into life and walk this pathway that He has called us to walk with our hands wide open, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if we are faithful and obedient, we can trust our generous God with His generous people to take care of His people. The story that I just told you, please don't focus on what Amanda and I were attempting to be faithful at. The whole point of me telling you what I was able to tell you is to challenge you to be this: generous. Even when you don't know why you're being generous, just know that God and His cosmic plan to restore humanity to Himself has your name in mind, has you as part of His plan and His purposes to restore humanity to Himself and just to express His generosity to a lost and dying world. So my challenge is to live with open hands, to say yes when God creates the opportunity for you to be generous and to be generous. One of the things that we said at Northwest this past weekend was this: we look like God when we give like God. And so from one venturer to another venturer, listen up, give like God. He wants to express His generosity to us, and specifically, He wants to express His generosity through us. So let's just be known as open-handed, others-focused, generous people. Venture, I love you so much, and we are blessed and honored to be in this season of life together with y'all. If this was an encouragement to you or a blessing to you, or maybe you know somebody who could be encouraged by this, just hit the like button, hit the subscription button, and please feel free to share this on social media or send a text message to somebody else. Our desire is to be an encouragement to you, to be an encouragement to each other, and to be an encouragement to people that you know. We love you guys, and we hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye.